Hello, everyone, and welcome into Boilermaker Lounge Tuesday edition here on the Lounge Sports Network and ASAP Network. I am Sam Springer, as always, joined by Grant Fleur. Grant, how are we this fine Tuesday morning or Tuesday, depending on when
Yeah,
people
doing
watch it?
doing pretty good. Crazy how cold it's been and all the snow. I'm assuming you got a lot of snow
Yep.
where you're at too, but like we just jumped straight from summer to winter. Like it was hot for a long time and then it was fall for a little bit and now it's just winter. But it'll
We
get
got
warmer.
we got about 2.5 weeks worth of true fall,
Yeah.
basically. Yeah, and then the next few days it's supposed to get back up into the 60s, and then I'm sure, with the way the Midwest works, we'll get 65 one day and 38 the next. So that's the way it
Yeah.
works.
Yeah. Well, I will be in Florida Monday through Friday next week, so that is
No,
going to be a lot of fun.
no, no.
Yeah, hey, if I
I,
went like 4 or 5 days earlier, I could go down to Tuscaloosa, catch the game, and then go on my way to Tallahassee, but not gonna do that.
Yeah, well, your coach probably has something to say about that. Probably won't
Right, yeah.
want you to
Yeah.
do that. But let's talk some Purdue basketball. Boilermakers get to 2-0. They improved to 2-0 with a hard fought win against the Oakland Grizzlies on Friday night at Mackey Arena. 87-77. Grant, they were tied at the half. They didn't look that great. This and of course this coming off the heels of Oakland going into Ann Arbor and just absolutely getting housed. And what were your takeaways from this game on Friday night?
Yeah, obviously not ideal at all. Not what we expected coming into it. What was the line? 30 points heading into the
Yeah,
game.
yep.
Yeah, and
We even made talk about that on
yeah. Yeah,
on Tuesday last week.
and of course when we talk about it is when it's going to be significantly lower than that. Um And part of it was just, not being in rhythm, not knocking down shots that they normally make. Took 35 three-pointers, only made 13, which 13 is not a bad number, but when you take 35 and you have as good a looks as they had, that's kind of
Yeah,
an issue. They weren't really pushing it into the paint the way that they really should have been. They weren't moving the zone as much. Robbie talked a lot about that during the broadcast of like they just weren't moving the zone, weren't penetrating the paint, which we were successful at when they did it. They just didn't do it enough. Um, Still no TKR, so it's one of those things where it's just tough to figure out, okay, how much is TKR gonna help? Obviously, he's gonna help a lot, but does he take this team to where they can be a number one type team, or are they gonna still have some of their struggles? So it's I don't know. It obviously don't feel good about it, but um, there's still the ceiling for this Purdue team is still high, and it's still like, okay, do we like how concerned should we be from this performance? And yeah, there are concerns, but also I don't think we're going to see quite this type of performance against Alabama.
the fact that they had a horrible shooting night. That's what I keep going back to as I think about this. The post game reaction that I did with Dustin Shooty on Friday night. It was simple. We talked about the fact that Purdue's not going to be struggling from the field most of the time like that. Um, are they going to have trouble shooting on nights? Sure. But it also shows exactly the value of Trey Kaufman-Redd. you know, uh, the fact that last year he made the most 2-point baskets in all of college basketball. He shot it, I believe, almost 60% or just over 60%. So that security blanket of being able to dump it down to him or give it to him to be able to make a move and try to get to the hoop or get an open shot and not be guaranteed necessarily, but have a really good chance of getting 2 points out of it. I think that it really shows his value and what he means to this offense, because you know what? They were struggling to shoot. What do you do when you struggle to shoot? You get it to the guy that is most likely to make your shot or make a shot. And TKR is not in the lineup right now. And that's not taking anything away from Jack Benter. He just isn't Trey Kaufman-Renn.
Yeah, that's a pretty good way to put it. It'll be interesting once he gets back just to see, okay, does he work well with Clough? How do back to the whole 4-5 situation that we were talking about through the exhibition games. And they'll have to figure that out on the fly because they're going to be playing Alabama. Like they don't have a warm up game, like we thought maybe this Oakland game would be if TKR came back. So I think they'll be fine, but it'll be interesting to watch how they match up. But TKR will definitely help this team. I think, people talk about how TKR is not really a rebounder, like a major rebounder. So will Purdue's rebounding issues go away with TKR? I think he probably helps them a lot. Not necessarily because he's going to secure 10 rebounds a game, but because just being a bigger body in there is going to help just clear things out, give Purdue better position. I think there are some intangible ways where he will help the rebounding. So that's good. And also, the rebounding was not good against Oakland, especially coming off a performance against Evansville that was questionable on the rebounding as well. You would have expected it to be better. However, Oakland ended up with 12 offensive rebounds, and they had, I think, 8 in the first 10 minutes.
Nine in the first half.
9 in the first half, and at least 8 of those were the first 10 minutes. So after that, it was like they gave up 3 offensive rebounds. Still were only like 2 rebounds off about rebounding them as a team, which, again, with a close game and giving up that many offensive rebounds early, the fact that it was even close, you could actually say it was a win. I think obviously rebounding numbers overall were not good. They should have completely destroyed this team on the glass. But when you consider that fact that the first 10 minutes they got out rebounded insanely, it actually makes it seem a little bit better. Like they figured things out. And when you throw TKR back in there, I think they're going to be able to hold their own. Now, again, they're playing Oakland compared to Alabama on Thursday. That makes a huge difference. But it's not as scary as the numbers are going to show simply if you look at the box score.
I still contend that I think Trey Kaufman-Renn's going to be a better rebounder this year than he was last year, simply because he's playing in the position that's more designed for him. He was out-positioned last year. He struggled to rebound, and he still didn't do a bad job rebounding, for a man his size playing against guys that are many times bigger than him. I contend that if he's in a position where he's playing guys that are more his size and maybe smaller than him because he's playing the correct position, I think that he might have a better chance of being a better rebounder. And that's not saying that everything's gonna be cured once he does get back into the lineup. I just think you're gonna see those guys. Jack Benter, I love him. I love the effort that he's been giving the 2 games that he's started up to this point. I love the what he brings to that lineup, but he just isn't Trey Kaufman-Renn at that size. TKR is bigger than him. Plus, he's got some very good experience at that position to where he can get in position to rebound. He knows how to make moves and things like that to get into position to rebound. I just think he's going to be providing a little bit extra and maybe taking off some pressure of Clough to where he's got Clough only has to worry about his one guy, his zone, to try to rebound rather than trying to help Benter at the same time.
Yeah, we'll see. I feel like we didn't see great rebounding even in those exhibition games, even from like TKR. So like we'll see if that improves, kind of like you're saying. Definitely could be the case. But yeah, I think that's overall just having him back in the game is going to help a lot. Jack Benter is looking really good, like all things considered, as a redshirt freshman, but he's not designed to be a starting 4 on the number 1 team in the country, like not right now. So he's done a great job filling in, but he is going to find his niche as a guy off the bench coming in for TKR to be the backup 4 or even sliding up to the 3, depending on the rotations and whatnot. So like, yeah, as good as Jack Benter has looked these first few games, it's TKR is the reason why this team is rated as high as they are. And so when they just need him back, essentially, is what it's going to be.
Right.
And he should be
Right.
back by Alabama. Like, I don't think we really need to worry about whether or not he's going to play against Bama, just because from what it sounds like, he probably could have played earlier this week, but they didn't feel like they needed him. So I think we can expect that. I just hope that they aren't really clunky when he comes back in, and they like are able to figure everything out through practice, and they're smooth like a well-oiled machine when they reach Tuscaloosa.
Well, and another thing that we found out that, well, I guess the rest of the country probably found out a little bit more is Braden Smith can take over a ball game if he needs to. He definitely can take over a ball game when he needs to. Not saying every minute of it with his scoring, because he did it at the beginning of the second half. They come out of halftime tied 35-35. He comes out and has a personal 8-0 run. Yeah, I believe it was, and maybe, and he scored 20 total points, but he had a what is it, nine assists. He had 3 turnovers, but you know what, a 3-to-1 ratio, assist to turnover ratio, that's not a bad ratio. I don't care who you're playing, and I made the comment during the post game with Dustin Shooty the other night that 1 point, 50 point, doesn't matter, wins a win. And there was a comment that was made in that contends, I would contend that the person said, I contend that this is an inaccurate statement. Well, no. Here's the thing: we're looking to win ball games. Do I care if we struggle against Oakland? Yeah, because there are things that need to be done. But you know what? Purdue struggled to shoot, and they still won this ball game by 10 points. I'm not saying that it was easy. I'm saying they had a night where they struggled. They didn't have their leading scorer, and they still were able to stretch their legs eventually and get a 10-point win. Is it going to come to bite them in March with the selection committee on, oh, hey, they only beat Oakland by 10 points in November? I highly doubt it. I don't care. I would much rather have a 1-point win than a 1-point loss.
Right.
And so therefore the win is what matters. You want it to look better, but there are lessons that they will learn even though they got a win.
Yeah, you're definitely right in the sense that like a win's a win. Obviously when you're playing, like, it's important that you are getting better, addressing certain issues and stuff, and clearly like we didn't see as much of that as we would have liked in this game. But like you said, at the end of the day, when it comes down to resume building and seeding for the NCAA tournament and all of those types of things, a loss to Oakland, no matter what, would have looked terrible and would have been really damaging, especially at home. But even winning by 1 point just keeps that off the slate, and you don't have to worry about it. And ultimately, 2 weeks from now, this whole situation could be moot. Like last year, Purdue had 2 or 3 close games in their opening games against the mid majors, and everybody had their doubts and questions, and they show up against Bama, beat them, and just like that, nobody cares anymore because they just beat the number 2 team in the country. Now, obviously, they could lose to Alabama on Thursday, and maybe those things are still a concern. But the point is, in 2 weeks, none of this is probably going to matter. Like, this is going to be a different team in 2 weeks. And the fact that they got the win keeps it off their long-term resume, and we can move on.
I am amazed. And before we move on to Thursday, I am amazed by the amount of comments I'm seeing. Well, we're not that good. Why would we be shocked that we'd struggle with Oakland? We're not that good. Oh, my good Lord. If that's the case, stop watching, because you know what? There are going to be games, and it happens with every single team. You're going to have games where you struggle against teams that you shouldn't. And then there are going to be games that just you perform exactly the way you think they should. I understand this was not at all what we were hoping it would turn out to be against Oakland. It wasn't, except for they got the win. You know what? Yeah, they got lucky to get the win. No, I don't think they got lucky. I think they had enough that they have enough talent that they could overcome an extremely poor shooting night. They were 47% overall. Like that includes 2-point shots. So they were 32 of 68 total overall. That's not great. You should be better. And they still ended up winning this game by 10. Okay, so that you look at it that way instead of, well, we're not that good. They're not going to shoot a horrid, putrid amount or percentage every single game. And they're going to shoot the lights out against some really darn good teams. It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen.
Yeah, for sure. Like, also, I would love to like have two separate box scores. I don't know that I have access to that right now, but looking at first half compared to second half, because like this was a tie ball game at halftime, and then at one point when CJ Cox hit that three, they're up 83-69. Like they increased the lead to 14 when it was tied in a matter of just a single half. The rebounding had to have been better. I don't know. Again, I don't know what those numbers were, but just looking at how many offensive rebounds they gave up in the first half compared to the second half, it would make sense that they out-rebounded Oakland in the second half. I don't know about shooting numbers. They probably were pretty similar, but defensively, they still gave up more points, but just being able to hold Oakland really when they needed to and to be able to go on some runs. Also, Oakland made some tough shots. Like they played good basketball.
Yeah.
But all of those things, like they got better as the game went on. They figured some things out, and they're going to look back and probably be able to learn a lot from this. Matt Painter says all the time, like, if you play close games and you can win them, they're great, because not only do you win the game, but you have a lot of areas you can go back and grow. And that's exactly what they have here with Oakland.
Yeah. I mean, this insane to think this team isn't that good. They put 6 guys in double figures against Oakland, and they should have. I mean, granted, but Braden Smith with 20, and I really did like what Fletcher Lawyer said in the postgame about that. They said, he said, we beat Oakland by 10. If we're supposed to be the number one team, we need. Hats off to them. They did a great job. But if we're supposed to be the number one team, we got to do better. He's right. But at the same time, he didn't say, oh, we're not that good. We're junk. No, he understands that game was an anomaly. They need to do better defensively. They need to shoot the ball better. He knows what they need to do. But yet he was still willing to call them out on themselves out on it.
Yeah, and that team without Trey Kaufman-Renn, like they're not bad, but at the same time, that team without TKR is not that good. Like they're not a top 5 team in the country without Trey Kaufman-Renn. I don't know where they would land. Probably still top 15 or 20, but like taking out TKR makes a huge difference in what this team can do. So yeah, in a sense, like they're not that good without TKR, but also like they beat Oakland by 10. They're a talented team. Didn't have their best night without one of their All-Americans, still found a way to get it done.
And I'm not saying that it absolutely would happen, because you can't just take, well, he averaged 20 points last year, they won by 10, he's in the game, they win by 30. But you got to think some of those missed opportunities are fed to him. He scores on a few of those, scores 15 points or whatever, and Purdue wins by 17 or 18. You feel a lot more comfortable with that outcome than the 10 and struggling through about halfway through the second half. It's not the a perfect, well, he averaged 20, they would won by 30. No, that's not going to necessarily be the case, but it would have been a lot more comfortable.
Yeah, and he sucks the defense in. He changes your whole defensive scheme. Like there's all sorts of things he would have changed about that. So, for sure. Just weird, interesting game. Lots of things to take from it, but at the same time, not something to totally panic about either.
Right. Well, let's move on to Thursday night in Tuscaloosa, the Boilermakers travel to number 8 Alabama, take on the Crimson Tide. A couple of teams going in opposite directions, and I use that in quotes. If you look at their movement in the polls, Purdue drops to number 2. Alabama jumps up to number 8 after a big win against St. John's this last weekend. St. John's in the top, I believe they were number 5, weren't they? Maybe last week, and Alabama beats them, jumps up to number 8. So it's number 2 and number 8 on Thursday. Grant, this is not going to be an easy one for Purdue.
No, first of all, did you look at the votes for the AP poll? Like
Purdue had more number 1 votes.
They had twice as many number 1 votes as Houston, but still got edged out by them in the poll. You know what that means? That means a lot of voters ranked them like 4th, 5th, 8th,
right,
like way lower than number 1. And Houston probably got, if they weren't first, they were second. And
that tells me there's a lot of people that aren't watching what maybe they don't know TKR's not in the game. Like are they paying attention to other things that they don't realize that Trey Kaufman-Renn hasn't played a minute of meaningful basketball yet this year? I mean, and they're putting them down in 4th. I'm sorry. That's that's kind of silly to start them out at number 1 and then drop them to number 4 after they struggled, on a couple of games.
Also, Michigan got a first place vote, and all they've done is beaten Oakland. And Alabama got a first place vote, and I get they just got a huge win over St. John's, but are you serious? We're going to rank them number 1.
Weren't they number 14 when they beat St. John's?
15. It was 15 over 5. So, that's kind of, I'm assuming those are the voters that also probably dropped Purdue way down. They probably just looked at the first 2 games exclusively and completely changed their rankings based off of that, which, I mean, I guess that's the data set, but at the same time, it seems pretty rash. So, what
have you done lately test?
Yeah, it just felt like a crazy poll to me for that reason.
Yeah. Well, it is 7 p.m. on Thursday on ESPN2 from Coleman Coliseum. Purdue goes into the Lions Den. They hosted Alabama last year. Alabama was number 2, and Purdue beat them by 6, I think it was, last year. But Grant, this one, like I said, it's going to be difficult, but let's look at it this way. If TKR is not in that starting lineup, what's the best diagnosis for Purdue? Is it Braden Smith taking over and dishing to him and Fletcher basically taking it over and trying to do a 2-headed monster to where they beat Alabama?
Yeah, if TKR isn't playing, then to me it has to come from the outside. Fletcher and Braden have to catch fire and just kind of both be kind of unguardable in the sense that they just are making a ton of tough shots or being able to drive and create seams for others. And with Oscar Clough probably holding down the middle as far as just being able to physically handle what Alabama's going to bring and hold down the rebounding to make it so they're not getting torched there. But at the same time, I totally expect Trey Kaufman-Renn to play in this game. So
me too.
I don't think it'll come down to that, but I think this is a big moment for Fletcher and Braden, especially because in Alabama's game against St. John's, Aiden Holloway and LeBaron Filan were insane. They are both really good guards. Like, Alabama's got a strong backcourt.
Sure. Yeah. And, well, for them to beat somebody like St. John's on the road, that's a pretty big statement piece for a team like Alabama. They've got a good, like you said, backcourt that's there. I really think establishing Oscar Clough. If you remember last year, he went into Alabama with South Dakota State and put up 21 points and I think like 13 rebounds against the Crimson Tide. Granted, it was South Dakota State. He was probably their option one down in the post. But I think Clough and Jacobson. I'd love to see Daniel Jacobson actually break off, 10 or 15 to where he's hitting a couple of shots from outside and being able to get into the post as well. But I think Oscar Clough is going to be a big if he can stay out of foul trouble, if he can continue to keep producing the way he has. And don't get me wrong, he hasn't been completely and utterly standout, and I don't think he'll be the leading scorer for Purdue on Thursday. But I do think if he can establish some semblance of a really strong post game with or without TKR, doesn't matter. TKR just adds even more, I think, really do. You want your All-American in there, but I think everybody knows TKR, if he's in the game, they've got to pay attention to him. And if they're going to put all of their concentration on, or a good portion of their concentration on TKR, Clough in the post is a pretty valuable and important guy against Alabama.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that front court goes because, last year Alabama's front court was really good. They had Cliff Amore and Grant Nelson. Right. And this year, it's not that it's not good. It just doesn't have those big names. And so it especially I'm looking at kind of the roster, and I think this is a game where if you're looking at, competing against top 10 opponents, I think Daniel Jacobson actually has less of a chance of being exposed in some of his physical ways against Alabama as he does against, some of your guys like Duke or Kentucky. They're going to start Sherrell and Bull Bowen, and Bull Bowen is kind of a thin, he's not as physically imposing. He kind of reminds me of Bull from the Denver Nuggets or wherever he's at now, as far as just how he plays. And then you've got Sherrell, who's 6'8", 205. No, excuse me. That's Amari Allen, but Sherrell is 6'10", 255, so he's bigger. But then they actually played Amari Allen for more minutes, who is a 6'8", 205 guy. So this definitely still going to be a huge test for them, but it's not quite like playing Kentucky with, Malachi Moreno and some of those guys like Brandon Garrison. So that I think fares well for Purdue, but the thing with Alabama is they're going to play super fast. They're going to run up and down the court. They're going to shoot as many threes as they can, and it's really tough to beat Alabama at their own game. And I feel like Purdue, while they're not going to they don't naturally play as fast as Alabama, they also aren't going to play super slowly. And if they aren't going to play super slowly and really combat that pace, I feel like they're going to get sucked into what Alabama's trying to do. And if they get sucked into what Alabama tries to do, it's going to be really tough to beat them at that.
Well, I think it's a matter of, if Alabama is, they shoot a lot. They're averaging 97 points a game. Granted it's only 2 games, but they're averaging 97. Purdue's at 84.5 in their 2 games. But if you look, Alabama's given up 80 points a game. Purdue's only given up 64. Granted, it's a couple of teams that. My point being is Alabama gives up almost 80 points a game. Purdue could, if they can hit their shots and Alabama doesn't, Purdue would be hang with these guys and probably beat them by 15, 20 points. But do you want to get in a shooting match with a team that lives in? I don't know that I'd want. I want to establish your game, not back into what they do. And that's my big hope for Purdue, is that they don't get into let's get into a 3-point shooting match, because we saw you can go 13 of 35. You do that against Alabama, you're not winning that ball game.
Yeah, and I'm looking at Alabama's numbers, and against St. John's, they were 11 of 35 from 3. So they shot a decent amount, but it wasn't absurd, and they only made 11 of them. But at the same time, I think that was a subpar performance, and they still beat St. John's on the road despite shooting those numbers.
Scored 100 points.
Right, and that a lot of that also has to do with the speed at which they play. When you're playing faster, there's more possessions, you're going to score more
Right.
points. Like 103-96, close game. You don't usually see close games reach those triple digit marks for both
Right.
teams. But the way Alabama plays, they do. Like you saw it last year as well. Which could be really fun in the sense that if Purdue can hang with them, they're probably going to score a lot of points in this game, like you said. But what concerns me a lot too is not just the shooting, but the quickness and the ability for Phylon and Holloway to just drive around defenders. And we know that Purdue has had difficulty at times keeping their man or keep staying in front of their man and between their man and the basket. I think they're going to be really challenged there with Aiden Holloway, LeBaron Phylon, as well as, Latrell Wright's off the bench. The other guys Alabama has that can slash, even their big guys. So that could be a big key for Purdue is where's help defense going to be? Can they rotate well to keep guys out of the paint? And then when they do, are Jacobson and Clough going to contend at the rim?
Yeah. Well, it's going to be a very, very interesting game on Thursday because not saying it will define what Purdue is, but it could make a big statement if they come out and establish their game and win against Alabama. That could silence a lot of people immediately because they're doing it on the road. They're doing it in Alabama's home gym, and I'm not saying it'll completely silence because some people just don't know how to understand that Purdue is a good team, but that's fine. But even a loss, honestly, Grant, a loss where they perform well and just don't just can't pull it out. I'm not going to be dissuaded that this team is one of the best teams in the country if they can go into Tuscaloosa, perform well, but maybe still fall short.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think the biggest thing that has cause for concern for me is just the fact that it is away from home. Like
Right.
I think Purdue's going to come out ready to play. They've had 6 days since the Oakland game or they will have 6 days when they reach the Alabama game. So that's a lot of time to prepare, a lot of time to get better, scout, scheme, things like that. They're going to want to prove themselves too. Like they are going to hear the same stuff everybody else is hearing and that we're saying about like the struggles against Oakland and the questions. They just dropped to number 2 instead of number 1. All of those things are going to build up to this game. So I think they're going to come out ready to go. The question is what happens when Alabama picks up the pace and goes on a 9-0 run and the crowd gets really into it. And now you've got the number 2 team in the country right where you want them. How does Purdue respond? And not just how do they respond, but is it going to be strong enough to kind of quiet and diminish the flame of what Alabama gets going? Because at some point that's going to happen because Alabama's a good team because they're playing at home. So what happens then, I think, is going to be the key on can Purdue stay with this team and have a chance to win, or will we see some struggles later on?
Well, I personally, I think the key is establishing your pace, excuse me, and forcing Alabama into bad looks. If they're gonna jack up 35 threes, make them contested, make them bad looks at 3. Don't let their shooters get open to where they've got an open look for 3 and they can set up all day because your percentages go up as soon as you have time to sit there and look at it a little bit longer. Now, you look at it too long, then maybe it drops. But what I'm saying is open looks are always much better and much easier and you get a higher percentage when you've got those. So contest them, make them take bad shots. If they're not going to take the 3 and you get out there on defense in enough time and they've got to drive and take a bad look at the a jump shot, you're forcing them into something that they're not comfortable with, and I'm okay with that. That is what I think the Boilers need to do to be able to establish their pace and establish what they want to do on offense. Because honestly, if TKR is in that lineup and Braden Smith is able to run the offense like he can, there's not many teams that can stop this offense when they're running at full strength and at the pace that they want to go at. So if defensively they can force those bad shots, maybe make Alabama take some shots they don't want to take late in the clock, early in the clock, don't matter. Whenever if they force them to take bad ones, and the whole offense is there running for the Boilermakers, we may be looking at a pretty good and eventful night on Thursday.
Yeah, I think you're right, especially as far as like Purdue is not going to have trouble scoring on this team, I don't think,
Right.
especially with the pace, like, and with TKR, like they should be able to score without too much difficulty. Forcing bad shots would be phenomenal. I think that's what they're going to have to do. In Alabama could make them. Like they took some tough shots and made them against St. John's. If that happens, there's nothing you can do. But you at least need to put them in those situations. And then on top of that, they have got to figure out a way to rebound, because if you give up offensive rebounds to Alabama, like 3-point shots off of offensive rebounds, it's the best time to take them, especially when you have a team that can shoot them well. And if they give up too many offensive rebounds, Alabama is going to make them pay. Like some of these mid majors haven't necessarily made them pay that much with their offensive rebounds, but Alabama 100% will. So you have to block out and control the glass.
Yep, I agree. It's rebounding and limiting the shots, one and dones. If they're not making their shots, make it. You've got to rebound and limit the second chances, and then everything that we just talked about prior to that. You play your game, and we'll be in good shape. But at no point will you hear me say they're just not that good. Grant, it's not going to happen. There's no way you can say they're just not that good when you've got 2 All-Americans and a good supporting cast, one of the best shooters in the conference from 3. Liam Murphy played an absolutely great game against Oakland. He only played 10 minutes. He scored 11 points. He missed his first 3 shots and then made 3 in a row that were just absolutely daggers that helped the Boilers stay in it and get back and develop and build a lead. So you've got some supporting cast that's on that on coming off that bench that we should be pretty excited about what these guys can do, because they're getting minutes. And when we get into the games that matter, because we know that this preseason or this conference, the non-con, is, while it's valuable, it's not upsetting if you stumble or lose, because it builds you and gets you ready for March. It's the conference season is that gets you whether or not you're a tournament team, because if you struggle in the conference, you might not get an automatic bid. So these guys are getting some very, very valuable experience against or in this non-con schedule that's going to help them along the way.
Yeah. It starts with Alabama, but then, like you said, you've got more. They got the Bahamas, and then Marquette, Iowa State, and all those guys, Auburn. So plenty of opportunities, but obviously a huge one on Thursday. Could be a lot of fun to watch. Like, honestly, I really think so. I love watching Alabama games because of the speed and because of all the scoring. Like, it's just fun basketball, and now Purdue gets to play it, and they've got the guys that can do it, content with them. So going to be a very fun game to watch.
I concur. But that brings us to the end of today's Boilermaker Lounge here on this Tuesday. The Boilers are 2-0. They're number 2 in the country. They travel to Alabama to take on the Crimson Tide on Thursday. Grant, this is it continues to get busy, but continues to be a real blast to talk about these guys. And yes, they are a good basketball team. Not that good. Come on. Let's not talk about that. But thanks so much for joining us today, and we'll be back. We'll have post game with our buddy Dustin Schutte on Thursday after the game in Tuscaloosa. Once that game's over, we will hit the YouTube channel airwaves, as they say, to talk about the game there in Tuscaloosa. Hopefully that's a Boilermaker W, but then we'll be back Friday to talk about the Crimson Tide game, and then also preview Sunday's game where Purdue hosts the Akron Zips. So we're really cruising along, Grant, and it is oh so fun.
Yep, it definitely is. We're getting into it now with some more competitive big time games. Not that the Oakland game wasn't competitive, but you know what I mean. So looking forward to it.
All right. Well, thank you again for so much for joining us today. For Grant Flora, I'm Sam Sprunger. We'll see you on Friday.